Tuesday. It is the 220th day of this year. There are 145 days left in 2023, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. Well, what a week it has been since we were last together. Let's see. Hip hop turned 50 years old. In politics, Justice Clarence Thomas drives a $267,230 RV that was financed by a wealthy friend, except there's no paperwork anywhere on it. The latest indictment against you-know-who gives the special counsel multiple paths to find a guilty verdict. Republicans, a poll found, are more interested in law and order than battling wokeness, whatever that is. On the Democratic side, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s presidential bid is frustrating members of his own family. They say his candidacy is an embarrassment. Yellow, the trucking firm that received, check this out, a $700 million pandemic bailout, has filed for bankruptcy. In Hollywood, the strike continues. Actors in Hollywood enter the fourth week of the strike. They decided they were going to get together and talk last week, but then they couldn't agree on what to begin talking on, so they scrapped it. But some of the higher end performers are now raising money to help some of the lower end performers. So far, they've raised $15 million for the Actors Foundation. Meryl Streep and George Clooney are leading that charge. They each donated $1 million and then began lobbying their fellow A-list actors. So far, Matt Damon, Leonardo DiCaprio, Nicole Kidman, Julia Roberts, and Oprah Winfrey have contributed to the fund. In sports, you know that Sweden beat the United States in penalty kicks at the Women's World Cup. Simone Biles won the U.S. Classic in her return to elite gymnastics, and Diana Taurasi, man, she's something else. At 41 years old, she hit her 10,000th point. Oregon and Washington are going to join the Big Ten, leaving the Pac-12. And Michael's favorite, Tommy Tuberville, continues to block the confirmation of military leadership appointments, continuing his standoff with the U.S. Secretary of Defense and Auburn alum Lloyd Austin, a black man. Considering Tuberville's career as a former coach of mostly black athletes, he continues to surround himself with an atmosphere of what seems to be racist thoughts. Our G-list guest today is Elisabeth Reed, not the one the Allman Brothers sing about, but the one at Illinois State. The month of August is known for vacations, but it's also known as Back to School Month. Today, we will discuss going back to school at the university level. Elisabeth Reed runs the Office of Sustainability at Illinois State University. We look forward to the discussion of her ideas like Fix It Friday and if it's broke, fix it. But first, let's move on. Our show today, of course, is sponsored by Best Girl. Best Girl is, let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl creates a solution that fits your needs. So let's go to our roundtable regulars, Barbara Wallace-Edwards and Michael Walker. Good morning, Barbara Wallace-Edwards.
Good morning, Thom. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, and you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Doing great.
Are you at home in Birmingham?
I am this week.
Okay.
That may not be the case next week, but I am at home this
well, I
week.
figured as much. That's why I always have to ask. So, what's happening
There
with
we
you?
go. Well, Thom, I want to start by asking for prayers for our dear friend, TWT friend, Anthony Tedeschi. Anthony's having surgery this morning. I
Oh,
always send out the notification about our show on Mondays, and Anthony responded back that he wouldn't be with us this morning because he's having surgery. So asking for prayers for him.
for sure.
Yes. And I also want to say happy heavenly birthday to my dad. Today would have been his 87th birthday. So happy birthday, Dad.
Good. Good.
And Tom, in other news, people that have a Wells Fargo account, I want to say they may need to start looking at their balances. There was a technical issue that resulted in customers reporting that their direct deposits had disappeared from their bank accounts.
Oh my
And
God.
on last Thursday, Wells Fargo hadn't been able to figure out what happened, but there had been, people money was showing up initially and then it was gone. People were having checks bouncing, all kind of issues. So as of last Thursday, Wells Fargo was still investigating the issue. Hopefully, it has
Did
been resolved by now.
did they replace the money in the people's counts?
They did, but of course, they had to be notified. Someone had to notify the bank that it was missing. They had no idea. They had no rhyme or reason as to why it happened. It didn't appear to happen to everyone. So it was some type of technical computer issue. That's always the case. So they
Wells
can't been able to figure
Fargo.
out.
Wells Fargo seems to have more issues than most other people.
Absolutely, I was going to say they've been in the news quite often over the last couple of years.
And there is this whole thing about, pretty soon people are going to stop taking handwritten checks from people and they're going to demand that you do it electronically. But you have more trouble electronically than anything. I mean, when people get hacked and so on and so forth, it's because they went through the electronic route.
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
And I don't know.
Yeah, it technologies can be good at times, but at times it's terrible. And when it's terrible, it's usually pretty bad.
Yeah, it is. I got one the other day about somebody. It's from some organization, and somebody went in and looked at, or whatever, stole, read, whatever, everybody's records. And,
yes.
And so now I got to fill out some paperwork. Although I didn't do anything, I got to fill out the paperwork to try to get it straightened out. So
you hear that quite often these days where, someone has accessed the files of all these major companies and all of your personal information is vulnerable. They don't know whether they've stolen it or if they have, how are they going to use it? So yeah, that is an issue.
It is, and it's one that continues to reoccur. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the solution is. I'm not a very technical person. I just like to hand them my check and they give me my receipt and we're cool,
Yes, but I agree with you. I'm not technically savvy either, Tom. So I get one of these issues, I call someone that is, and
well, if you can get someone on the phone, that's the thing,
So true.
I just, when that voice comes on, that robot, whatever it is, comes on, so I just keep punching zero till I get a human being.
Right.
Let's try it again. No, I don't want to try it again. Give me a human being.
I tell you, it's terrible. You have to keep calling. Sometimes you have to keep calling back. I've got into this, I call it a roundabout thing where, I'm pressing zero constantly and it keeps taking me back to the recording. Please leave a message. Please press 1. Please press 9. I was like, no, I want to talk to a person.
Right.
I'm not satisfied talking to the computer.
And a lot of times, I don't mean this ugly, but a lot of times the person can't solve your issues because all they can do is read what's on the thing that's in front of them.
True.
So anyway, it's a different world.
Yes.
But it's the one that we live in. So
true.
We'll see. Let's get Michael Walker on here. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, TG. Good morning, Barbara. How are you both doing?
Doing good.
Doing well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for asking.
Okay, what you got for us this morning?
Well, got a couple things, but the first thing I want to talk about
You want to talk about the rumble in Montgomery?
Rumble at the river.
The rumble at the river, humble at the river. You know, what is going on in Alabama? I saw that incident, and the brother was only trying to do his job. So these people decide they don't agree with what he's telling them to do and why and all that. So they decide they're gonna take matters in their own hand and get physical with him. But the other thing I want to talk about is something that's happening in Alabama, a place called New Bern, Alabama. Mm-hmm. Now, you say, where is New Bern? Right. New Bern is about, let's see, maybe a couple hours away from Selma, where the Edmund Pettus Bridge was, and about 20 minutes from the area where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. married Coretta Scott King. Yes. But this story is about a man by the name of Patrick Braxton. He accomplished what no other person had ever done before, which is he became the first Black mayor of New Bern back in 2020.
Yes.
After 1854. But he is filing a lawsuit because they pulled a Trump on him right out of the Trump playbook. The person that was mayor decided he wasn't going to run again. And Patrick won by default because he filed his paperwork, did everything he was supposed to do. But once he was sworn in and became mayor, there was a scheme. They put together a scheme to get rid of him and not to let him take office. So the person that was already mayor, they had a special election because they weren't going to let him appoint new council members. Now, New Bern is a majority Black town, mind you.
Yes.
Okay. So they put locks on the city hall. They wouldn't allow him to get the mail for the city. The local bank wouldn't give him access to the bank accounts. So they all just formed this total ouster against him.
Right.
So he is now suing them. And it'll be interesting to see where this is. And the real funny thing about it, he said this little lady came up to him and said, New Bern is just not ready for a Black mayor.
I read that. And Michael, you mentioned something. He said the mayor decided not to run again, the former mayor. Yeah. Well, they never had an election before.
That's right.
The thing is, they had just appointed, their friends and family members, that whoever the mayor was, when he got tired of being mayor, he just found one of his friends and said, hey, you want to be mayor next? And so that's how they chose the mayors. They had not had an election. When Mr. Braxton decided he wanted to run, he investigated to find out what he needed to do. Actually asked the mayor, who was the man that was mayor at that time, what did he need to do. He gave him the wrong instructions. And Mr. Braxton said, no, that doesn't sound right to me. So he went and found out exactly what he needed to do. He ran basically unopposed. So he became the mayor by default. And they just refused to give it to him. They're like, no, we're not ready to go yet. So you can't.
Well, not only that, when he met with the guy, the former mayor said, we don't have election machines or ballots.
Right.
So we don't hold elections.
Right. Like, what?
Wow.
This is 2023. Can you believe it?
And so he's been locked out ever since 2021 now.
Wow.
So he's filing a lawsuit. And he says
how are they running the city? So the former mayor is running the city?
Yeah, they just took over. Yeah,
and his friends that he has appointed as council members, they didn't have an election for council either. So he just, handpicked his council members and said, we're going to run this thing, and we're just not going to let anybody else take over.
Right, we're not going to transition power. I told you, it was straight out of the Trump playbook, man. They ran it better than Trump did.
He was in Montgomery last week. And that's what my friend who told me about the rumble at the river. He said, well, Trump had inspired him.
I guess so.
And so they were going to fight. So
and the whole thing at the river started because this people had their little pontoon boat docked where the riverboat was supposed to dock. That's the riverboat's property. They reserved this space to, and so this riverboat was out on a dinner cruise. And when it was time for it to come back, these people wouldn't move. They wouldn't move their little pontoon boat. And the security guard was like, you have to move it. The boat has to come in. There's people waiting to get off, other people waiting to get on, because they were people who had paid to get on the next cruise. They couldn't even get on. They couldn't bring it in dock. So people
Yeah.
feeling privileged, I guess. They were just
Well,
determined that that was going to be
you
their
got
space for that day.
you got New Bern, you got the Rumble at the River, and you got Michael's favorite, Tommy Tuberville.
Favorite person.
Tommy T, the mental midget. Last week I was pretty hard on the police officers. So this week I'm going to share a story that's heartwarming from a police officer here in Georgia. His name is Officer Colleran, and he's a police officer in Hateville, city down near the airport of Atlanta. He was called to this neighborhood and was asked to remove this young African-American boy from the neighborhood. So when Officer Colleran got to the neighborhood and approached the young boy to ask him what was going on, and the young boy said that he wanted to pull weeds, he wanted to cut grass, trim hedges in order to earn money to purchase a PlayStation, and he wanted to get money to buy clothes for his siblings.
Wow.
And the police officer, after talking to him, found him to be truthful and very well-mannered. And he decided that he was going to do something for this kid. He was not going to run him out of the neighborhood. He went back, got some donations, and bought the young man a PlayStation.
Wow.
And went back to the neighborhood and pulled up on him and took him to the back of the car and opened the trunk, and he saw the PlayStation. And the little boy was just overwhelmed with joy. And he reached out and hugged the officer, and the officer said, yeah, we're going to be playing together. We're going to be teammates on PlayStation. So that was real heartwarming. And just think, this little kid, he's 16 years old, and he's not, like they always say that usually young Black teenagers look like grown men. He does not look like a grown man. He looks like a little boy. He looks younger than 16. But he was just going, knocking on doors and offering to pull weeds, to do anything to try to earn money for himself and his siblings. So the police officer bought him a PlayStation. And a lot of people wrote in and said that person ought to be ashamed for what she did, calling the police to have him removed as if he was a threat, which he was not, So kudos to Officer Colleran for doing that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and hopefully for the whole police force, because maybe there's an atmosphere of neighborhood policing, of getting to know the people in the neighborhoods and helping them.
Right.
That's just a different thing, and that's big today. We pretty much got neighborhood policing. I mean, they ride through the neighborhood, they wave at you, and so on and so forth. And I remember telling people when I grew up, if we saw the sheriff, we started running, man. They said, well, what were you running for? I said, hell, it was the police, We hadn't done anything, but we didn't want to be standing around there when he came,
Yeah.
So,
So that's a really good story for the police officers.
It is.
And there are policemen that do stuff like that, but that was really heartwarming to see him do that for that kid.
I agree. It's a great story, Michael. Thank you.
And speaking of Alabama, we're back in the news. Alabama, I say Alabama since I grew up there. There's a list that came out, the 10 most dangerous cities in the U.S. And Mobile, Alabama is number 2.
Oh, Lord.
Birmingham, Alabama is number 7 on the list.
Damn.
I really don't understand why, with all the stuff that's going on that Alabama needs to worry about, why are they having 2 in the top 10 of most dangerous cities?
That's what Tommy needs to be focusing on, things like that, rather than some of the things he's actually doing.
Yeah.
Tommy ain't figured out who he is or what he should be doing. Somebody told him to do this, and so he's doing it.
Yeah.
Should have never been up there.
I forgot. That's what I was looking for. Number 1 on the list, Bessemer.
Wow.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
Bessemer is big enough to have crime.
Bessemer number 1, Mobile number 2, and Birmingham number 7.
Wow.
Out of
the top 10, that's in the top 10.
10
So,
of all cities in the U.S.
in the
Yeah.
nation.
In the
Yeah.
nation.
Wow, that's incredible.
That is
Yeah.
incredible.
Hey, when I was, I don't know if they still have it because I had been to Bessemer a long time, but Bessemer used to have only have red and green lights. They didn't have yellow. And so you'd be going along on green and boom, it'll turn red. You got a
Oh,
ticket.
wow.
So
Wow.
I guess they finally got some yellow. I don't know.
Finally.
I
I thought traffic lights were a national thing. They were all the same everywhere.
Yeah.
So Michael, Dolores Sr. says that please continue to update on New Bern Mayor story. This is serious. Seeing the small town, you understand how these political / wrong actions are acceptable.
That's
So
right.
she would like for us to continue on that story, and we will monitor it. And I don't know, man. It's hard to believe that it's 2023 and that kind of stuff still happens. I saw one the other day. I was out of town, so when you're out of town, you watch stuff on TV that you don't normally watch. So I was watching this show, and I've seen it before. It's a show about people who have been adopted, and they want to find their birth parents. They're up in age now, and they want to know where they actually came from, so on and so forth.
Right.
But it's a story. It's in Georgia. It's in North Georgia, and I forget the name of the town. But this doctor was selling babies, man, out of his office. Women would go to him for abortions. This was in the 60s. They would go to him for abortions, and then they would be told that their baby died.
Wow.
Or that they had the successful abortion.
Right.
He would take the baby and have contacted another family, would hand it to the family out the back door, and it was $1,000 for $1,000.
Wow.
And so now there are hundreds of these babies, and they don't know who their parents were. Their parents don't even know that they're still living, and the parents are probably a lot of the parents are dead now.
Right.
And it was just an incredible story. And it's these two people who go out and do it. They go out and find birth parents for people because they were both adopted, and they wanted to find their birth parents. So they stumbled upon this story that this doctor was selling babies. This lady said, yeah, we pulled up, and he came out and he handed us the baby. We gave him $1,000, and we drove back to Illinois because they were from Illinois. So yeah, there's a lot of craziness in this world,
Definitely.
And they would go through this little town. It's kind of like New Bern, Michael. They'd go through this little town, and they would ask people about the doctor, and nobody would talk. It's like, no, he was a good man. Yeah, but there was things that he was doing. Was he doing abortions? Well, I can't talk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Well, that may be one of those places where Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, is from. I didn't mention this
favorite person
last week, but you guys know that she took a picture of Hunter Biden into the congressional hearing of his private parts and put it on display.
No, she did.
Yes, she did that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They're trying to, they're going after Biden, for whatever. And then because Hunter, he was convicted on tax evasion and all this stuff, and they felt like he was getting a slap on the wrist and stuff. So evidently there was a tape of him out there engaging in adult activities and what have you. And she got a hold of it and got the pictures of it, and they brought it. She took it in to the room where the congressmen were having a discussion and put the picture up.
Well,
There
what
were
did
two
that
pictures.
have to do with the topic she was discussing, Michael? I still didn't understand. I heard about it, but I couldn't understand the association. Why would she
Well,
bring that picture?
it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's all you have to know.
That's
Okay.
all
That
I can say.
explains it.
That's
That explains the
MTG.
whole thing. Yeah.
She's known as MTG.
I wonder if she has any interest in the fact that Clarence Thomas drives a $267,230 RV that he has no paperwork on. And supposedly his friend made him a loan,
Yeah.
but there's no
Like
paperwork.
the friend financed his mother's house and all
Yeah,
kinds of things.
yeah. But he's never benefited from any kind of affirmative action or anything such as that, you
He's
know.
benefiting from a lot of things.
Okay. You guys got anything else?
The only other thing I want to mention, Tom, is that COVID diagnoses are back on the uprise. So people need to
Yes.
be extremely careful out there. There's not any very few free COVID tests available right now, but I think someone said you can still find some at libraries and community centers and food banks and so forth. So if anyone has any type of symptoms, they need to go get tested because there's a friend of mine's family member is in the hospital or just released from the hospital, I think on yesterday, COVID diagnosis. So it's extremely dangerous times right now.
Well,
Yeah.
I had
Well, we talked about it on the show. I said back in May, there was a surge of it, a resurge over across the pond, so to speak, in China and different places like this. So now it's making its way here. And the drugstores and everybody, they're stocking up on vaccines and stuff and telling you come in to get your COVID shot with your flu shot.
Well, I had my 6-month revisit to my doctor last week, and he told me he had 5 patients in the hospital from
Wow.
COVID. And I said, so it's a resurgence. He said, it never went away, man.
Oh, wow.
So I agree. We all need to be careful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going into this fall, things cool down. Anything else from you guys?
That's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you. That was good. Let's go to Sean. She's got a minute for us.
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. Tomorrow is International Worlds of Indigenous Peoples Day, with this year's theme focusing on Indigenous youth as agents of change for self-determination. There are an estimated 476 million Indigenous peoples in the world living across 90 countries. They make up less than 5% of the world's population, but account for 15% of the poorest. They speak an overwhelming majority of the world's estimated 7,000 languages and represent 5,000 different cultures. Indigenous peoples are inheritors and practitioners of unique cultures and ways of relating to people and the environment. Indigenous peoples' conceptualization of health and well-being is generally broader and more holistic, with health frequently viewed as both an individual and a collective right, strongly determined by community, land, and the natural environment. Article 24 of United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People recognizes the right of Indigenous peoples to their traditional medicines, to maintain their health practices, and to access social and health services without discrimination. Happy International Worlds of Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute.
All right, good. Thank you, Sean. That was great. I've been reading a lot about Indigenous people, especially since our trip to Alaska. It's an interesting story of their history, let me put it that way, especially in the United States. Okay, so let's go to the Hollywood has the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Tom, we have the G list, and our G list guest today is Elisabeth Reed. Not the Elisabeth Reed that the Allman Brothers sing about, but the Elisabeth Reed at Illinois State University. She is the director of Illinois State University's Office of Sustainability. She has led the university to develop its first sustainability strategic plan, integrated zero waste practices into campus operations, and created innovative programming for students, faculty, staff, and community members. So let's hear from Elizabeth. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you for being with us. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a beautiful day here in Normal, Illinois
Okay.
at ISU's campus. So glad to be here.
Tell us about this sustainability effort and what brought it about.
Sure. Well, I can back up a little bit just to share with you as far as the history of sustainability a little bit at Illinois State, or even just, across the board at different universities. Typically, it started kind of in the 80s with different, maybe some faculty or different students being engaged with planting trees or, just wanting, to get recycling on campus, that type of thing. So that's where a lot of sustainability efforts really started on different campuses across the country. Here at ISU, our Office of Sustainability started in 2011. Before that, there was that passionate kind of group of faculty called the Green Team that did some different things, recycling and like a local foods dinner, things like that. I started working here at ISU in 2008, working in the fashion design and merchandising program. But throughout my time working in that program, I partnered with the Office of Sustainability. And then in 2019, I want to say, 2019 is when I moved over from teaching and into this role in the sustainability office. Sometimes people think, well, how did you go from like fashion merchandising and things into sustainability? But actually the fashion industry, our clothing, textile industry is one of the world's biggest polluters. So it was something that I was really engaged with and interested in, researched a lot about while I was teaching. And so it was really exciting to kind of move over to this office and have kind of a broader reach beyond just the fashion students, but across the board, across campus. So the Office of Sustainability at Illinois State is really the hub for all kinds of different sustainability initiatives, many that you introduced there in the intro, as far as zero waste and different research projects across campus, our natural environment across campus, energy, transportation, anything and everything that you can think of. I like to say that sustainability really is everywhere.
So can you tell us about Fix It Friday?
Yeah, sure. So that's kind of that background with fashion and sustainability. So when I was teaching, about these different concepts or thinking about the people that make our clothing or, what happens to our clothing when we're done with it, it was like we were talking about it, but I wanted to have some kind of, what can we do about it? Some kind of action, for the students to kind of feel like they are contributing to, making an impact or a difference. And so I had a couple students that were really interested in doing something as well. And so the few of us got together and we had a couple sewing machines in our design studio that were just kind of donations that weren't really used too many times, kind of more home sewing machines. And we set those up on our quad and just invited anybody to bring whatever clothing items they might need to have it fixed for free. And it was amazing, the kind of the result of that, how many people actually showed up. And that was, I think in maybe 2016 is when we started that. And from there on the quad, we started traveling all over our community here in Bloomington Normal, where we set up our sewing machines at coffee shops and libraries and all kinds of little stores or different places all around the community. And always had a flood of different people coming in to have things fixed. It was really, that idea of if it's broke, fix it, but also trying to educate people on, being more mindful of your consumption, what you're consuming. And then once you do kind of purchase that shirt or those pair of jeans or something, to keep it and to fix it if it is broken, and then obviously to carry that over into other areas of your life as well. So it's been a really great initiative for the students to be involved with across the community. And so when I moved into the Office of Sustainability, I was able to take that program with me. And so it's been around for many years now. And we fixed probably over 1,000 different items over the many years, and have traveled around the state of Illinois as well to different places in Chicago and other areas in central Illinois as well. So it's really great. We encourage other universities and other groups to copy off of us because it's a good, it's a really great thing, and it's been really well received. So
Yeah, well, I see you got your Red Birds T-shirt on,
yes,
and Joyce is a red bird, and she
that's
says
right.
hi this morning. So she's on
Hi
here
to
on the
Joyce
chat.
out there.
So okay, Barbara, you got a question?
I do. Good morning, Elizabeth, and
Good
thank you for
morning.
being with us this morning. I have a question about your Sustainability Council. That was something new that I had not heard about at any other university. So, can you talk about that and what's the purpose of the council and what all do they do?
Yeah, sure. Well, we have our first ever sustainability strategic plan at ISU, and this was put together by a task force of about 30 plus faculty, staff, and students all across campus. We really wanted to make sure that task force represented all areas of campus, so everyone kind of had some kind of stake involved in it. So we had people within facilities that were, dealing with our fleet of vehicles on campus, or people that are in grounds that are dealing with landscaping. And we also have representatives from housing, from obviously all of our different academic units, from energy, from athletics, from dining, all the events that we have. So, and then obviously students as well. So that was a big kind of group that wrote this plan. But then after the plan was actually finalized, it's like, okay, now we have this plan. How do we implement it? It's not just this
Right.
beautiful document with these nice words. We want it to be something that we can actually use and put into practice. So that council was selected from that task force of individuals that are still a sampling of those different areas of campus, but they're really going to be the ones to help implement these efforts. They can also be our go-to for different projects and things that we have on campus to bounce ideas off of, or just be experts in different areas. Sustainability is so wide that, I'm not going to say that I know everything there is to know about water stewardship or energy efficiency. So, if I have questions that I'm not aware of, that's great about being in a university setting, is there's always experts around to be able to ask those questions. And so that really is what that council is about, is helping to implement that strategic plan and be those champions across our campus too.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Michael?
Yes. Good morning, Elizabeth. Thanks for
Good
being with
morning.
us today.
Sure.
I noticed a couple things I'd like for you to speak with them. One is Blue Jeans Go Green.
Oh.
What was that? And then the other one is a sustainable fashion show. Please expound on those.
Those are kind of a blast from the past for me. Those were some of the things that I started off initially with, and so I love that. Those are great to talk about. So Blue Jeans Go Green is a really amazing campaign through Cotton Incorporated. Cotton itself has such a history in our country in so many ways. I used to teach a textiles class, and I think I used to tell the students we could cover the whole semester just on cotton, as far as the history and how, the slaves in those cotton fields were what built this country in so many ways, fueling so many things. So cotton is, it is. So in any case, cotton, I feel an obligation to cotton in so many ways, to be responsible with it. And so a lot of our denim is made from cotton. And after jeans are, completely worn out, you can recycle cotton into some different materials. And so that's specifically what Cotton Incorporated has done with Blue Jeans Go Green is to take back all this used denim and shred it down and make it into housing insulation or building insulation. You can Google denim, building insulation, and that's what it is from. It's from cotton and typically jeans. Now, there are some jeans, a lot of them have spandex and other things in them now. It can make it a little difficult, but more, the higher percentage cotton denim is what you can turn into housing insulation. So they have different ways that you can donate to Blue Jeans Go Green, but they also work with different universities to collect, kind of do a competition, of collecting denim. And so we did that years ago, was applied to be part of this competition, and we just put a messaging out to our community about collecting denim, and we were completely overwhelmed with how many jeans we got. I think we got in second place among some the other universities that were, but we had over 2,300 or something pieces of denim.
Wow.
I could be exaggerating every time I talk about it, but still, it was a lot.
Sounds like a lot.
And so it's a really great program, and it just, those types of things are encouraging to find and see different groups being responsible for some of the waste that is out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then, our sustainable fashion show, those are things that we've done over the years, trying to encourage students to think about what they're creating in a more, with a longer vision in mind. The fashion industry is so based on trends, and what's, in today is out tomorrow, and really kind of rethinking that in a way that's more about style and something that's more lasting, about fit and other areas of clothing, and so that it's more sustainable, getting them, this is the time of your life in many ways, is to challenge some of those things and to get creative in college and experiment with different ideas. And so that's, those types of shows or challenges or things that we like to encourage with the students.
Okay. That's great.
Barbara, Michael?
One of the things that I was going to ask about, Elisabeth, is greenwashing. That's a term that I saw in your website, and I was not familiar with it. Can you tell us what that is and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So greenwashing is a term about kind of a marketing term, in that the company, as an example, a company that says they're doing certain things, or whether it be recycling something or choosing a certain type of material or something. And it really is just on the surface. It's not really, they're not really digging in and really being a sustainable company. They're just kind of doing it for marketing purposes in many ways. You see that a lot with different products, that it's that idea that it's just a trend. The sustainability is a trend, and being green is a trend, whereas it's not a trend. We're in a severe climate crisis. It can't be a trend anymore. This is a lifestyle. This is something that we have to actually adapt to and adopt. So it's not something that, like, some of these different companies can just solve by saying they're going to put 10% of, recycled plastic in a product and then call it the eco version of something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we see that quite often these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bottled water is a great example of that. Bottled water, I always think, is like the biggest scam since pet rocks. I mean, it's just so much of the bottled water is bottled from local tap water sources.
Yes.
And then, but they'll bottle it and say, that it's, and the advertising that it's safer than drinking water, out of your tap. Now, some communities, that's a major problem.
Right.
But if your community has safe drinking water, then there is no reason to be drinking bottled water out of plastic.
Right.
And then the plastic itself, sometimes it'll say that, it was made from recycled bottles or this or that. And that's just, it just to make us feel better about it. And it's not doing anything good for any of us.
Right.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Michael?
Elisabeth, you said that sustainability is your compass, and every decision that you make is centered on sustainability. Kind of expound on that, in your decision. From a business perspective, I know that every decision I make from a financial standpoint needs to sustain itself. So I understand it that way, but I'm trying to connect with you on what you're saying based on your field.
Yeah, sure. I know sustainability has multiple definitions in that way, but what I like to say in regards to that word first is just that if something isn't, financially stable, then that's not sustainable. If it's not something that you can continue to practice, whether that be that it's not convenient or it doesn't integrate into your lifestyle necessarily, like it's impossible to do, then that's not really sustainable either. Examples that I, would like to ride my bike to work. I could ride my bike to work. It's about 15, my house is about 15-minute bike ride away, but I've got 3 kids and errands to run and places to stop. So it's not something that I could do every day. I can't dedicate. That's not sustainable for me. But I do, with the decisions that I make throughout the day, I like to think not only is it like my compass, but it's like, you vote with your dollars. So the purchases that I make, what am I supporting? What am I contributing to? If I buy, whether it be groceries or clothing or, different things that I support along the way, the decisions that I make, it really it's in so many ways about being mindful and just not consuming so quickly or out of convenience, but really thinking about the things that I'm doing, like going to the grocery store or like buying a piece of clothing or where I'm donating different things too. What's the impact of all of that as well? So it's really being that kind of that mindful individual and consumer, slowing down a little bit and trying to really try to understand some of the world around you and how you play a part into that. Where my decisions every day actually do impact all of our decisions here in the United States can have an impact on people across the world. And how does that help? What am I doing each day to make things better?
Okay. Well, thank you for that. You mentioned riding your bike. Is wearing your helmet sustainable while you ride your bike?
Yes, definitely, because my brother fell off. Yeah, my brother fell off his bike as an adult, knowing he should be having his helmet. So he's actually the one, it's like, make sure you wear your helmet after having definitely I wear my helmet. I'd be a good example as well. Yes, for sure.
I think that one was aimed at me. So,
do you not wear a helmet? You should.
I wear it now. I had to take a blow to the head.
Yes.
For it to sink in.
Mm-hmm. So. Sometimes you gotta live by experience. Right?
I don't know, and I don't think that they had the sustainability effort. Maybe they did when my wife was at Illinois State. But I can tell you this: our recycle bucket is far more. It's far fuller than the garbage can.
That's good.
Garbage can is about this full, and the recycle thing is this full.
Yes, absolutely. That's good. Be mindful of all those things for sure as you're consuming. Although we like to say now that we have some other, forever it's always been reduce, reuse, recycle, right? Like those are the terms that we hear. But they're actually, first of all, in an order for purpose. Like the first one is reduce, right? So saying no, like I said, to those plastic water bottles and things like that, reducing that in your life. And then reusing as much as you can. And then the last resort is actually recycling. We've added some other ones on there, some other R words like repair for Fix It Friday, but also refuse, of just saying no to some things, whether it be certain, plastics that I try to refuse to purchase, or other practices as well.
It's funny, and Thom brought up recycling. I read recently where this family I think it was in Arizona or somewhere like that. They went to a recycling facility, and they got all of the cans there, the aluminum cans, took them all. And then they went over to California and sold them and made $7.5 million. Now people are all upset.
I need to look that story up. Wow,
They
that's
did
crazy.
that,
Wow.
And I'm like, well, man, that was kind of slick thinking there. But
yes, it was.
So now everybody's mad at them. They're trying to say, well, you can't do that. Well, they sold it. They sold it to another group and got $7 million for it.
Wow.
Wow. I didn't know there was that much of a money-making opportunity. Aluminum itself, as just a side note to that, aluminum is a better choice than plastic and it's infinitely recyclable. So as an example, if you are like that refuse kind of idea or reduce, is if you're in a situation where you could choose, you're at a gas station or something on a road trip and you want to get a drink, the better choice would be to get aluminum can instead of
plastic.
The plastic ones. It's because it is, and there you go. There's a market for it.
Right.
So yeah, the recycling is really complicated. It's what I like to say is there's a market, or there's recycling. Everything can be recycled. Like truly, there's so many things that can be recycled, but there has to be a market for it. And because we consume at such a huge rate of all these things, the market can be really picky. So a lot of our plastics that we think are recyclable are actually not. Because there's not they are, but there's not a market for them. There's nobody buying any of those things. So like, as an example, clamshell containers, like those takeout clamshell containers or berry kind of clamshell, like get strawberries or those types of things. There's no market for any of those. So, I mean, it's really, really challenging. So choose aluminum, but hopefully it's, not being swiped from a facility and being sold. I'm at least it's being recycled, right?
Right.
Man, I guess I was out of town, so I was watching all these weird things. But this guy it was about people who were cheap. This guy would go around to dumpsters.
Yeah.
And he would look through and he'd find a wine bottle that had like this much wine left in it.
Oh, geez.
And he would find food, wine, clothes, and he'd take them home. He'd drink the wine right out of the bottle,
I mean, I guess it's the alcohol kills any germs. Then I don't know.
I guess.
That may be why COVID's on the rise. Huh?
I know. I'm all about the saving from landfill, but yeah,
that's a little much.
Within reason. Yeah, right, for sure.
So, Elisabeth, you got anything else you want to talk about that we hadn't asked you?
Yeah, well, speaking of the reusing of things, we appreciate. I think several of you might have contributed to some donations to our upcoming. Big front yard free cycle. We took all our students when they move out, they have a lot of stuff they no longer need. And so we do a big donation drive at the end of the school year in May. And we collected all kinds of different items, clothing, accessories, housewares, mini fridges, all that stuff from dorms. And we're going to put it out on the front lawn of our office next week for a big free cycle. All the incoming students, they come back next week. So wish us luck. But they will come back next week. And we have hundreds and hundreds of items that will be ready for the students to reuse. I mean, so many of them have only been used for 9 months, for that first year of college for some of those students. And so they'll be able to come and get a lot of new things, continue to give it some life. And so I'm excited about
Will it be free? It's free for them?
Totally free. Totally free.
That's great.
Yep, for all any of college students. So yeah.
That's great.
And we have
Yeah, when you generally don't even know what you need till you get there.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it's great that that's available.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're excited about that. For any other information, people can, find us online, follow us on Instagram or Facebook. It's Sustain ISU. So we encourage anyone. We love to share information, not just about what we're doing, about sustainability in general, to educate those and to have everybody kind of be part of this journey with us. So.
Okay. All right. Barbara, Michael, you good?
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
All right. Okay, my closing comments for today. I'm going to read from Reflections on Florida's 2008 Apology for Slavery, since we've been told that slavery was good for some of these people. If in 2008, the state of Florida, where I live, gave an apology for its slavery on March 26, 2008, at a joint session of the legislature, when Florida became the 6th U.S. state to apologize for its slavery. And this woman, Sandy Friesing, wrote a guest column this, and she said, regarding current discussions, I do not believe that slaves in Florida moved on from their nightmares with improved skill sets, which placed them on a pathway to economic success and security. To think otherwise is fiction, given implementation of Florida's black codes. Regarding current discussions, I do not believe that slaves in Florida moved on from their nightmares with improved skills. Whereas, and so excerpts from the 2008 SCR adopted by unanimous vote of both houses of the legislature. Whereas the council and its successors did over 4 decades construct a legal framework that perpetuated African slavery in one of the most brutal and dehumanizing forms. Whereas this legal framework included such lawful punishment as the following: that any Negro or other slave duly convicted of robbery or burglary shall suffer death or have his or her ears nailed to post and there stand for 1 hour and receive 30 lashes on his or her bare back at the discretion of the court. And whereas in 1827, free Africans were denied the right to vote, and in later years were by law so repressed, restricted, and harassed that by 1850, most had been driven from Florida. Whereas African slavery was entrenched within the plantation culture of Middle Florida to such a degree that by the year 1860, 73% of the total population of Leon County, Florida, were slaves. Whereas even though the laws permitting justices have been repealed, it is important that the legislature express profound regret for the shameful culture in this state's history, and in so doing promote and reconciliation among all Floridians. And so she goes on, in the spirit of healing and reconciliation, that the governor, lawmakers, executive agents, Florida, reflect on this 2008 apology as we move in these unfortunately contentious times. Another view of slavery, other than the fact that it helped so many Black people, according to Governor DeSantis. And that is how I see it on this August the 8th in the year of 2023. That's our show for today. We want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. We want to thank our G-list guest, Elisabeth Reed. We want to thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. And as always, thanks again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, Emily, and Michael. And that's it for this 8th of August. Remember, enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.